What would the young Gyan who used to live in Calcutta say to you today?
Get a life. Break more rules.
So you don't like set of boundaries?
I don't think you should have boundaries. I feel that the whole idea of a screenplay is very dictatorial. You can't be a dictator always because you need them to buy into this vision. There's a great rule, no, that you draw a line 90 degrees to your camera on either side of the camera. What's in front of that line is what the audience is going to see.
That's the
What's
word.
behind that line, the audience doesn't care about. You might be hungry, but your actor can't be.
Tell us about the journey of The Good Road. This was your first feature film,
Yes.
which became the India's official entry to Oscars that year.
I actually wasn't interested in making a film.
After doing 400 plus ad
I'm
films.
very happy in that world. And,
What would you say prepared you to deliver such a beautiful, complex, complicated process in the first go?
as a director, you must have a vision. Don't listen to too many people. Not because they are bad, because they're not you.
We have heard enough about it's the director who brings out the acting in the actors. What is the role of a director there?
Oh my God. How do you deal with actors? You have to lie to them. When you walk away from your actor should be so inspired to act and not think. In The Good Road, for the non-actors, I would just naturally let them go for it. They didn't do what I wanted them to do exactly, but that was magic for me as a director.
Art or stories specifically, they bring people together.
Yes. So when you have, like, say for example, a strong political narrative,
Yeah.
the first thing they will cut down is art, because that's a threat to them. So to be an artist, you have to be brave, you have to be unflinching, and you have to accept that there are many truths.
Hi Gyan.
Hi.
We are in Mumbai. 2024 has just gone by and 2025 is here.
Yeah.
Can I request you to close your eyes for me? Please go back to your childhood, the year of your choice. Tell us what intrigued you the most as a kid.
I was born in Calcutta. I grew up in Calcutta. As a child, I saw violence in Calcutta. There was a lot of political violence. There was a big change taking place, which I didn't understand at the time. So that left a very deep impression on me, and it intrigued me that, and it still intrigues me about how the capacity for real, I would say evil that people can have, honestly.
Interesting. The same conclusion somewhere I reached in my life early on, where I was amazed and intrigued by how different people can behave differently
Yeah.
in the same situation.
Yeah.
And that intrigue, I think it still continues for me. But since then till now, what have you figured out about human behavior?
I figure out that, so there are two things here that I want to tell you. There's a guy called Jeffrey Hinton. He is the guy who invented AI. I think that's his name. I could be wrong. He talks about how he started his career looking at the human brain and studying neural networks in the brain, and he used a computer, and he gave up on human beings and he's just focused on the computer, and he's fascinated by the possibilities of the computer. And now 30 years later, we have these fantastic AI engines that are doing marvelous things. So maybe as a species we are flawed as human beings, which is sad if we are going to be replaced by AI. So I often think about human beings, what is our capacity for evil, but I also want to say we have a phenomenal capacity for good.
Right.
And anyway, good and evil are human terms. Was it Woody Allen who said that the world is unimaginably violent, cruel, cold, and amoral?
Amoral.
Yeah.
So, to maybe help create a structure or a method in the chaos, in the madness, we came up with whatever rules and regulations.
Absolutely.
Where does art come in all this?
Good question. The best way to communicate rules and regulations, as you said, is story. All religions use story. In fact, there's an argument that all religions are stories.
Our stories.
And creativity comes in the telling, the retelling, the interpretation of that story, of those stories. And when I talk about stories, I'm really talking about cinema.
Right.
Universally, if you look at story, the stories are the same over cultures.
What do you mean?
In the Bible, God took the rib out of Adam and created Eve. Zeus took the thigh of his progeny and created something. I'm
Sure.
a little hazy on this. These are templates that keep replicating all over the world and all over time. So you
Correct.
have a lot of cases like this where you have repetitive patterns in story taking place.
In a time when there was no way for geographically distant parts of the world to communicate with each other across timelines also. So are you saying stories transcend boundaries?
Yes.
How do we explain that?
But we are all the same species, so we all need the same story. As you said, is someone knows something, he has to communicate it to someone else, so he uses story, right? So the person who he is communicating to is also a human being. That human being could exist in Mesopotamia, he or she could exist in the Far East, or he or she could exist in, say, South America.
Right.
Of course, there are cultural differences, 100%, but essentially our blood is all red.
That is such a positive and liberating statement, if I may say so, because of all the boundaries that have been created. In a way, you're saying art or stories specifically, they bring people together.
Yes. So when you have, like, say, for example, a strong political narrative,
Yeah.
and if you have a strong religious narrative, the first thing they will cut down is art, because that's a threat to them. So you have censorship.
Yeah.
It affects art and the expression of art immediately.
How would you define the power of art? What does art do to an individual?
The first thing is that for me, art is making a choice. When I'm on a set and I'm asked to, do you like A or B? Everyone's eyes are on me. It's quite onerous and it's quite scary, but you have to take that choice.
Yeah.
And the sum of those choices is an artistic expression. And the sum of those choices obviously come from my experiences, and as a child growing up and in Calcutta in my case, or later the friendships I formed and the things we did when we were in school and college.
Yeah.
So at the end of your life, if you look back, you are actually the sum of several events.
Right.
That influences, or that's the biggest influence in your artistic choice. Some people are shy to express their artistic, and those people are very happy that someone else expresses it and they just have to say yes or no. But somewhere deep down, all of us express our creative choice. And in the choice of your bed sheet on your bed, you have to make a choice. I mean, you go to buy a shirt, you have to choose one shirt, no?
This is an empowering statement. You're saying everybody is an artist in some way or
I
the
think
other.
so. Yeah, they're making artistic choices. They're making choices which are most likely artistic choices. I'm using the word aesthetic and artistic together.
Sure.
An artist is someone who creates art, and you're not creating art by buying a shirt.
Sure.
I understand that. But what I'm stressing is that being an artist, you're making a choice all the time. And I can say this, that the best way to make a choice is to ask a question. So you question yourself. So then you come to the whole question of what is going to be the impact of the choice you make on your subject.
Yeah, and it completely makes sense because you're
Yeah.
saying the power or the influence of art comes from the choices you make and what those choices would do, and the choices you make is because of what you are as a sum total of the experiences.
I think so.
And those choices will be different
With everyone.
with everyone,
With everyone.
which means art is subjective.
Yeah.
So is there something called a good art?
So when you say good art, you can only say that in the past tense. Good art is timeless. So then you can only evaluate art given the passage of time, and you can test it, and you can say whether it has stood the test of time. Then you can say, has it traveled? Has it gone around the world? The first thing is, I don't know, except in hindsight. So the real question is, from a commercial point of view, what art is going to stand the test of time? And I think that if your art talks to the simple emotions that we face, and I'd also say very honest emotions, that connects with people, I think that's good art. Having said that, some of the greatest, Van Gogh's, his artistic brilliance was appreciated only after he died.
Yeah.
So at the time, you don't know. I would imagine there are fewer artists in the world today because of this I don't know. See, this I don't know means you don't get paid. If you don't get paid, you can't do what you're doing, and you need to earn. So a guy who could be a really good artist puts on his jacket and tie every morning and goes to office and is an accountant. And you can't be an artist when you're doing accounts, right? I mean, I guess there is space for creative accountancy, but I don't know.
I hope not.
I'm sure there is. The question now is, and let me ask you, what is art?
Right.
I'm asking you now, what is art?
How do you define art? For me, art would be something that evokes emotion if you either practice it or appreciate it. I should feel something within me if I am practicing my art, if my chosen form is writing or doodling. It should bring joy to me or some emotion. If not joy, it should bring some emotion to me, and my art should bring some emotion to you if you are the audience to it.
But then there are many things that many non-artistic activities that people do that bring joy.
Right.
So
how do you define how do you differentiate?
yeah, it's a tough thing. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what art is. I do know that you're asked to make choices. What guides that choice? What informs that choice? I think that's your artistic disposition. So I think art is you're creating something, and yes, sure, it provokes in you whatever, laughter, anger, emotion, and it could also provoke you to think.
Sure. Journey inward when you're looking something
Yes.
outside of you.
Yes.
Talking about choices, from economics and anthropology to filmmaking is a choice that you made.
Oh, right, yeah.
How did that happen?
So economics is interesting, but it's very maths oriented.
Yeah.
And maths is not my strong suit, to put it very mildly. I was in Xavier's, and on my on my campus, there was a Institute of Communication, and I wandered in there. And I was fascinated. And I think that's how I began. And I loved the idea of, on so many different levels. One is just dealing with people.
Yeah.
Secondly is, there were far fewer rules. In cinema, I think there are very few rules. And there's a lot of received wisdom, but there are no rules. And there's no cost for a rule. If I'm a brain surgeon and if I get creative, my patient dies.
You have to be within the rules and be
That's right.
creative.
As a pilot, if you start getting creative, you'll have a big boom and a crash, and But in cinema, it's okay. I mean, if you make a film that flops.
You mean by rules, you mean space for experimentation.
I mean, space for experimentation is one way of putting it, but rules are also very rigid. There's a cost, and a very severe cost associated with breaking the rules. And I should also add that I'm by nature a very contrarian guy, and I don't like rules.
So you don't like set of boundaries?
No, I don't think you should have boundaries. I feel that the whole thing about cinema, for example, the whole idea of a screenplay,
right,
is very dictatorial. This whole way that you write the character's name and what he says, and this boundary and that boundary, and I find this very restrictive. So it works because a maximum number of people come to the table with the same sort of piece of paper in front of them.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it. All I'm trying to use it as an illustration of how rules can be can
How
bound
would you write a screenplay? What is an ideal format for you?
Yesterday, a producer asked me the same question, and he saw. So I use scraps of paper, I use a picture, I use anything, because an idea is just in your head.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge is how to communicate it to someone else. If anger is an idea, it's very simple. I just slap someone,
Yeah.
and then he slaps me back, and then we have a lot of slapping and fun. But when you're talking about a cinematic enterprise, you need to get that idea down. So I do that in various ways. I like music informs me, people inform me, photographs inform me, a lot of things. And at the end, then you have to put it down into a way that, producer, actor, ADs, everyone. Don't get me wrong, when I say that a script is limiting, maybe that's what we need as human beings for organization.
A tool to communicate.
Yeah, and to run the whole show, because everyone has an opinion, which is great, but then not always, right?
Right.
And when you have a lot of money riding on you, and you have a big set and 70, 80 people, if everyone had their opinion, I mean, this is not parliament, right?
How
This
do
is
you
a
come
film. You can't have everyone shouting at the same time, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That brings you on the same page, literally as well as
very well
figuratively.
put. Very well put, yeah.
Thank you. That makes me want to ask you, how did you bring people on the same page with The Good Road? Because it is such a beautiful film, but I'm sure the making of it or the behind the scenes would have been a lot of efforts. And tell us
Yeah.
about the journey of The Good Road.
I actually wasn't interested in making a film. I was very happy.
After doing 400 plus ad
I'm
films.
very happy in that world, and who will be interested in me making a film? I'm not from the industry. I'm not a Bollywood kind of guy, and how would that kind of story be promoted or be funded? But then I met a good friend, Aditya, actually, who told me, come on, it's about time. And he has a very low opinion of advertising anyway, which he expresses freely. And so he said, do something. Now, prior to this, maybe in college, I took a bus ride to Ahmedabad. And in those days, the air flights were not like today. There was only one airline. And I just had to go there. And there were no tickets, and there was no flight, and there was nothing. So I just got onto a bus. And it was a fascinating journey, looking at all the people on the bus and the dynamic, the families, the kids, the parents, etc. When Aditya, many, 20 years later, told me, you have to make a film, come on, you're a filmmaker, you're a storyteller, etc., etc. I had to go to Goa. And the same situation arose. But I couldn't get a ticket, and there was no chance I could go, so I had to take a bus. And when I was on this bus, there was one point where a child was left behind at a stop.
Oh.
But of course, the parents stopped the bus, and there was a
Sure.
lot of kerfuffle and argument. If I remember right, it was a multi-generational family. So there was, within that family, there was some friction. As you know, in India, mother-in-laws do not get along with daughter-in-laws. That's how this whole idea started. And then, of course, I'm very interested in how we all inhabit the same space, different classes and different income groups and income levels. That's how this started. And you have this class situation, and you have this. And along the way, then I met this, I read something about these prostitution among this tribal community in Odisha on the highway. I felt that this story and child getting left behind, there was some sort of connection. So I had a highway, I had a child left behind by irresponsible city parents or affluent parents, and I had these guys living in a very alternate sort of world in Odisha that I was talking about. Now the only thing left was, what about this what's the vehicle? I
Yeah.
only know about a bus, and everywhere I cut it, a bus is kind of boring,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
And too many elements.
because cinema is about character, at least to me, and character doesn't have to be human, but these are humans. So,
Sure.
so a friend of mine has a small scale unit down south, and they keep shipping stuff. And I told him I want to ride on a truck. So he got the truck, and he told one of his guys, I don't know, this guy's from Bombay, he's a bit weird, but he'll come with you and he'll be on the truck. They thought I was a police spy or something, so that had to be killed. But I lived with them. I traveled with them. I ate with them. I slept, not with them, but I slept
Yeah.
next to the truck or under the truck, and
You lived the life.
We lived their life. I lived their life for like some time, and we drove. When we drove from south, somewhere near Bangalore, no, further south, and we went up to Indore and
Oh,
etc.
really?
Yeah, much further.
It's a long journey.
I just was amazed by what I learnt on that trip. And I was amazed about how truck drivers do the things they do despite a very, very hostile environment. Now, what I mean by hostile environment is, and a lot of this has changed with GST, but at every border, you have to meet sales tax and octroi, So at every border, you have to bribe, literally bribe. And at one place, we just stopped for about 7 hours. And I said, why have you stopped? His name is Pappu, the driver, that's how. So I said, Pappu, why have you stopped? So he explained to me that there was a shift change. His setting is with the next guy and not with this guy. And I didn't know about this shift change, so now we have to wait. And I said, why can't you pay this guy? So he said, I don't have 200 rupees. I don't have 200 rupees to pay him. And I was like, wow, for 200 rupees, this truck with this material, which is, by the way, highly overloaded. So if he didn't pay the 200 rupees and if he turned over the border, he would get into serious trouble, right? For 200 rupees, there's something seriously wrong.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to him, and all of this informed the story that was forming in my head. And then when I finished the story, and NFDC, I really thank them. I think they gave me everything, the confidence. But then after the film went through the lab with foreign sort of advisors, it changed completely. And then I had to choose a home. Where am I going to shoot the story? And then, of course, I have advertising background, so aesthetics, etc. So I had in mind, one is Ladakh, but that's not going to work because Ladakh is production and logistics wise difficult, and therefore these are all modest budgets, right? So it wouldn't fit in. So I went to Kutch. So I spent 2 years after that in Kutch. You have to spend 2 years because it's just too hot to be there in summer. I did that, and I found that this is my home. Then I had to cast, and we'd sit in dhabas and we'd look at drivers and we picked this guy.
And you picked a real driver who acted in your...
All of them are real people. This guy, Shamji is his name, but we'll call him Pappu because that's his screen name. But I don't think has seen a film. This is what he told me. So, yeah.
And he landed up in a film which was India's official entry to Oscar that year.
Really.
Talk about stars.
Because when we were shooting, we wanted to use location sound, but we couldn't. We had to dub some lines of his. And I remember he came to the studio in Ahmedabad and he just froze. And then I had to sit and hold his hand and talk to him, and then dubbing is quite easy actually, you get into it, you get into character, and your entire body language, apart from your lip sync, everything.
In a way, you were acting during dubbing because...
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice because you can actually redo things with little nuances. That's cheating, I must say, but it's not good, but sometimes you have to do it. So he's a non-actor. And
he went back to driving.
Oh, absolutely. And the guy next to him is actually a student of philosophy in Ahmedabad.
Wow.
But I was nervous about putting two non-actors
Yeah.
together. So I thought his screen partner should be someone who has got a little, and I must say, Priyank was fantastic because when Priyank came to Ahmedabad, I said, I don't know if you've ever been in a truck. And he laughed and he said, I doubt if you've been in a truck. And actually, you're right in saying that, but actually, you're also wrong because I have. He said, then how does it all square up? So I said, it's very simple. We are here for 4 days. And we were looking for locations. I said, I want to see you on this highway in trucks. And he got it. There's a way you get onto a truck.
Yeah.
The way you place your feet, the way you swing your body, he got that language perfectly. The other thing I notice about truck drivers is that they are constantly looking at the horizon.
Okay.
Because you drive at that. And as Pappu Shamji told me, he said that if a car is coming towards me and it overtakes, I can't brake. Because we will die. And he said there have been times, not to him, he said he's heard that cars have gone right under the truck. They can't brake. That's how, this is what I mean. The injustice of a system that makes a driver responsible for a truck that's overloaded, and then he is subjected to the tyranny of the smallest cop. I see great injustice in that.
It is, yeah. And you used medium of cinema, an art form, to communicate that very subtly and very seamlessly, I might say.
Yes. So I saw that the whole thing of my real life Pappu, who I traveled with, is illiterate. But he has to carry some 4 separate documents because the system is cheating right through. When the material leaves the factory, there's one kind of sales tax invoice. When it comes to the border, there's another kind of sales tax. When it's delivered, there's something else. This guy knows what to present. So all these things now came into the story. If you see that check post, and, I don't know if you remember the film.
I remember the film. Yeah. It's a film which you can't forget any frame of. I have to add that. Be it when...
I think Amitabh did a fantastic job.
I must add, we already had Amitabh on Voice of Artist.
Good.
And he shared his experience of the good road and how he called it magical, where there were a lot of things where both of you wanted to achieve and you did, and in his words, he can't explain how that happened. It felt like magic.
And in many cases, we set out to achieve one thing, we arrived at something else, which is even better. In the scene where the girls are standing in line, we had an argument.
Right.
I wanted them in one way, he wanted it another way, and I think his way was much better. And then there was a beautiful shots of the clothes hanging, the dyeing unit, no?
I will take a segue into now coming into the filmmaking, the technicalities of it. We have heard enough about director-DOP dynamics and statements like it's the director who brings out the acting in the actors. And of course the motherhood statement, the director is the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
What is the role of a director there?
Oh my God.
With some example.
But you're right, the director is responsible. If you see the contracts I signed, the director is responsible for delivery. Right?
So there is responsibility on the shoulders.
Absolutely. And I always look at how much footage have we got in the can at the end of the day. My team is writing out what we're going to shoot the next morning and what we have or have not achieved. So I am responsible. I'm also responsible for actualization of a vision. Now you know that if a ship has a collision, the captain is held responsible, even though it's no fault of his own. So a director is like that. In terms of how do you deal with actors? So you have to watch your actor very closely. You have to lie to them.
You lie to them.
You have to lie to them. I think they like it. As a director, when you're interacting with them, when you walk away from your actor should be so inspired to act and not think. The nature of cinema is not for everyone to sit in an auditorium and have an actor think. He is there to see an actor act.
That's brilliant.
In The Good Road, for the non-actors, I would just get them to be comfortable and familiar with the environment and the people, and then naturally let them go for it. They didn't do what I wanted them to do exactly. They did things, but that was magic for me as a director. One of the things that I told Amitabh is that please don't come in my way with tripods and lights and lighting and all. Please don't. Not in the way of my actors. And he said, absolutely.
Wow.
That's the nature of this subject. It will be like that. And for him to take essentially a documentary approach
Right.
and make this beautiful art, these beautiful artistic frames, I think is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I think it's absolutely painting. Every frame is a painting.
Absolutely.
Outstanding.
It is breathtaking. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember so many times when we were watching, we would really, sigh.
Yeah.
And that brings you relief, that brings you peace, and immense sense of gratitude of how the beautiful way you have shown nature,
Yeah.
I think.
So, as the story progresses, it gets more and more naughty in
Yeah.
this guy's journey. I mean, the truck driver is just leading a normal life. He's doing his normal deliveries. He's got the little scam going, everything. And the spanner in the works of him is suddenly this kid has turned up. And he has to do something with this kid. And what the dhaba tells him, the owner tells him,
Yeah.
is just get rid of the kid.
Yeah.
He's not yours. So why? But now this guy is in his mind, it's like the wrong thing to do. I should also say that in casting, I learned he has daughters and he's very, very much of a family man, which made a big difference in the choice of him.
So he's not acting, actually became living.
If you see, he really connects with that kid.
Especially when he makes him sing towards the end. Oh my God.
Absolutely. All of that. That is really. So when you ask how do you get an acting performance, give the actor his space, let him know the broad parameters, but, and I go back to that, don't put too many rules. If you have too many rules, you lose magic. For example, in the night scene, that's shot with torches. How do you shoot a night scene with such a small budget? We had 2 or 3 lights. But look at the way he's had that smoke and fog and he's lit it up. I think it's, and then torches. And I also want to say at that time, digital cameras are not that good.
Right.
So you're talking about white salt
Right.
and black sky. You
Such a
can't get a
contrast.
bigger contrast.
Yeah.
And he had to get that in the same frame. He did that. We could only use film. We could not afford 35mm film, so we used 16mm film. Amitabh's own camera was used for this.
You actually used film and not digital.
Yes,
Which is why you were saying can, and I was wondering why are you saying
So,
can?
so now when you're shooting in the desert, how do you know what you shot
Wow.
in this situation is good or not? So we'd have to, that day I remember at the end of that shoot in the morning, someone took the bus back with the cans to Bhuj airport and flew to Bombay. We had already told the lab that we're coming, they processed it, came back, telecined it, rough, just a one light, came back to the set, the entire unit was sitting there waiting for this tape. Amitabh put it in and then everyone clapped because it was so nice. Without grading, nothing, just
Sure.
one light. And everyone was so happy. So there's a lot of that tension. I would say that was magical, looking at everyone's expression and, because if it didn't work, then that would be a really big problem.
Yeah. This actually makes me think, this was your first feature film.
Yes.
Again, I'm repeating, which became the India's official entry to Oscars that year. What would you say prepared you to deliver such a beautiful, complex, complicated process in the first go? What are the pieces are you made of is what I'm asking in a way.
I think there's a lot of good fortune. And that's part of the terrain. You have good luck and bad luck. And all we can do is be prepared for both. And I think that when you have shot so many ads and so many films, that instills in you a kind of discipline and, so you are prepared. And lastly, I would say as a director, you must have a vision. You absolutely must have a voice. Don't listen to too many people. Not because they are bad, because they are not you.
And you have to make the choice.
You have to make the choice.
It's not about the failure, it's not about the disappointment, but how do you handle such tough situations while keeping the creative energy high?
I don't know. It just happens. It's very taxing. The second most difficult thing about making a film is the actual making of the film. It's being on the set. You have all these different people, they all have their own thought processes, and you have to get everyone together. But you can't be a dictator always, because you need them to buy into this vision.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not, I mean, this is not a factory floor or something where, you want your actor is such a big, there's a great rule, no, that you draw a line 90 degrees to your camera on either side of the camera. What's in front of that line is what the audience is going to see.
That's the
What's
word.
behind that line, the audience doesn't care about. You might be hungry, but your actor can't be. Spoil your actor, spoil your actress, spoil the child, because they are worth gold. And the good ones are worth every buck they're paid, I would imagine.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, because if they don't work, you have no film.
Otherwise, it's a production design.
Production design is in front of the camera. So I include the output of the art director, etc. I include the output of the cameraman. It's not like I think there are no one.
Sure.
But what I'm trying to say is that the biggest subject in front of the camera is the actor. And I don't mean just his face and makeup and all. I mean, how is he feeling inside at that moment? Is he connecting with his... So, for example, I said you have to lie to your actor. Very often actors come and they know the lines, and that may not be a good idea, because you want that fight between husband and wife to surprise each other
Both.
and to the audience. And I have some very simple rules about editing. You should be leaning forward to when you watch a film. So when you're editing a film, you should be drawn into the scene, leaning forward like that. And then at some point you can relax because something has happened. So the same way, the actor, the friction between these two screen partners will pull the audience forward.
Now, switching to advertising. Countless number of ads you have directed. Something has stayed with you which you really enjoy doing, or which was challenging and you're like, how did I deliver this gem? Talk to us about that.
The one thing that stands out in my mind is the first time I looked through an ARRI camera. Because earlier I had never shot on cinema, on film cameras. I had shot on video.
Right.
And then this is the first time I looked through, and I think that was magical. And I in that instant I realized that a camera has only one eye. And that one eye compresses so much information and brings you to that focus of what is important. So I think therein lies the big magic when you understand that. And now whenever I go to a set and I look at a set, I close one eye. You don't look at it with two eyes, because with two eyes you have depth, but the camera simulates all that. There's one eye, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So these are the things that I still to date stand out and I remember.
Creatively, does the role of a director change when it's an ad versus a cinema?
It does, for maybe not entirely wholesome reasons, but it shouldn't. The reason why it changes is because as human beings, we love committees and we love the insurance that a committee gives you. Not one person can be held responsible, and you have a committee. Now, the good thing about a committee is you have a lot of opinions.
Right.
And in an ad, because it's just 30 seconds, you can have that. But the problem with this approach is that then you're just looking at a collection of good-looking shots, and you're not looking at a really good delivery of an idea. Let's face it, a lot of FMCG category and all the ads are that. They're just good-looking shots, and I've done a lot of them. So.
Which one comes to your mind right now, of all the ones which you've done?
First of all, a lot of hair commercials.
Right.
Because hair is a very interesting thing to shoot.
Right.
It's dead cell.
Yeah. How do you make it fall?
It has no volition, it has no inner motor, it has nothing. So you have a girl or a guy, but you have a girl, say, who has very strong neck muscles and flicks her head and it flies, and how it falls, how it catches light, etc. So this is where a committee can sit and say, oh, was the shine enough, and that kind of thing. So as a director, it's not challenging, it's not interesting.
Understood.
It's not engaging. I'll tell you, in the same category, I've shot a lot of baby commercials. Fascinating. I find babies fascinating.
You changed the game of advertising in India by bringing babies into the
Well, I'm not
screen.
there are many other, few other ad filmmakers who make baby films and are better than I am. So I have some advantages and some disadvantages. One is I'm not a mother, and I never will be a mother. And in this category, the consumer is exclusively a mother. That's a disadvantage for me. But then the advantage of maybe why I was successful is I could be dispassionate. And I am dispassionate. I love to watch how human beings interact with each other, and you know. I'll give you an example. We were shooting a commercial once where there were two babies, a boy and a girl. And this boy had not seen this girl. Maybe he'd never seen a girl before. But he was looking at her. And I was sitting on this chair, and you know, a set is very noisy. And this
chaotic.
girl, the AD, was there, she was playing with them. And I think she turned to some box to pick up some more toys, and this boy leaned across, grabbed the girl, and bit her head. I, of course, screamed. No one heard me. I ran for it. That poor girl was howling. And this boy was interested because babies like
Curious.
to test things by biting, and you know, I've found this very, very interesting behavior.
Unfiltered curiosity.
Unfiltered, absolutely, and working on that curiosity. Of course, the mothers, and so that's another
That's
story
another-
altogether. We had to pacify them. We also have a doctor on set. Always.
Right, of course.
So the doctor examined and said no. A pediatrician said no, they're fine.
Baby commercials are fun.
Fascinating. You need a huge amount of patience because they often do nothing.
How do you make a baby
Again,
act?
you do not get a baby to act. You let the baby do his thing or her thing. But you do know that babies are interested in some things. And
So you use their curiosity.
yes, you harness that.
Who is Gyan?
So this is a very tough question. I don't know how to answer that. I can only say that every one of us is the sum of all the experiences we've had and the choices we make. Like, who is Sachin Tendulkar? He'll tell you my batting does all the talking. The same way, whatever I do and make, it's a little easier for me to answer that way.
As an artist, do you think you or any artist sees the world differently or lives the world differently? Is there an artistic lens?
No, there's a non-artistic lens.
Like,
I mean, all the time. Sometimes when I frame a shot or make a film and someone looks at it and says nothing happened to me, and I said,
you missed it.
maybe you should see a doctor or something, or take some medicine. I can't help you there. But you know, really, it's how I see it, the way I see it, and for good or for bad, that's the way I am. And I think an artist should be true to that. He should not try and do things to please people.
Of course.
Please yourself. That's what people pay to come and see. Right?
Yeah.
It's a big thing when you make a film. When you think about it, everyone is paying money to come to see a film, money for the ticket, money for taking the time out. They will dress up, they will put on whatever, cologne, comb their hair, all that. They'll come, they're excited.
Yeah.
If they come to see the film, their first reaction to you is going to be positive. If for no other reason that they spent all this effort to come, no one is going to pay $100 and say, I've spent this money on crap. Right? You're mad if you do that. So you're going to give the benefit of the doubt to the
Right.
artistic expression, everything.
Right.
And their mindset when they sit to see the film is very positive towards the film, the filmmaker, the enterprise. It must be, right?
Yeah.
They've spent
You've made an conscious effort.
huge
Yeah.
effort to come.
I think it's a very hopeful statement because hopeful at the same time, a statement which subtly shows the responsibility filmmakers have. You're pulling people away from
Yeah.
their routine and they are, like you said, spending time, money, effort in coming to watch you, and in spite of that, if the reviews come that, hey, I did not enjoy it,
Yeah,
that's a voice that
But
matter.
though I'd like to caution you that a lot of these voices are filtered, and we're going to see more and more of it, where you have sophisticated tools to manipulate audience behavior. Now, no one manipulates an audience to destroy your film. That's not what I'm saying, but they certainly can use it to enhance your film over and above what it really ranks. And since it's a limited space that the collective mind can concentrate, a good film may not make it to the cinema hall, which is why we have art house cinema and things like that. Festivals and things like that.
When we were conceptualizing Voice of Artist, Gyan, and we met you, so thank you for being a part of the journey since the beginning.
It's a good thing. All the best. I hope it does a good job.
Why is a platform like Voice of Artist important?
First and foremost, it doesn't exist. This sort of sentiment doesn't exist. So just by acknowledging an artist is a good thing. And an artist is a lonely guy. I remember going to a potter's hut somewhere, and the number of spoilt pots that were lying next to him. And it just struck me that look at the amount of pain the guy has to go through. And then at the end, who are we to haggle about what he creates at the end? That creation has been at the cost of a mountain of broken pots and pans.
Wow.
And I think that is good enough reason for the artist to have a voice and speak about it. Because we are only otherwise seeing the finished product, which is fantastic.
I have to thank you because you encouraged and nudged us to think of Voice of Artist as a story. And you encouraged us to write the log line for this. And we said if Voice of Artist were a story, the log line would be that a rebel collective must unlock the universal artistic energy to create art above chart, which brings a positive tomorrow. That's how we try to sum up the thought.
Nice.
It took us time to connect the dots, but art and creativity is rebellious in nature, and that takes heart and not to shy away from the dark or the negative.
So to be an artist, you have to be brave, you have to be unflinching in the pursuit of truth, and you have to accept that there are many truths. There might be one fact, but there are many truths. If we can accept that, I think it will be a nicer world.
What is your Voice of Artist?
I don't think I can sum that up. So the biggest challenge for a filmmaker is you find your voice. I saw a film called All We Imagine Is Light, and I just thought it was fantastic, and I was so thrilled to see that film. And I think that filmmaker has found her voice. When an artist finds his voice, it's something for all of us to celebrate. Everyone has a voice, and it should be heard. You need the confidence to go out, and I think that if you guys can do that, give more people confidence, you're doing a great service.
Thank you. To wrap this conversation, what would the young Gyan who used to live in Calcutta say to you today?
Get a life. Stop being so conservative, break more rules or whatever, I don't know. The question is that when I look back on life, how do I feel? I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere the Egyptians used to say when you go to heaven, when you die, you're asked two questions. One is, have you been happy? And then two is, have you made other people happy? I would say that when every one of us, in whatever we do, should have that perspective, and not the perspective of me, mine, now. If I can just sum up, when I shot The Good Road, I felt that was embodied in the truck drivers that I saw. And when he told me that I was looking at his eyes and how he was looking always ahead. And he told me that, when people come, young people, they're racing, they overtake, I just wonder, do they know what we are going through? And having been a young person who did a lot of that overtaking, dangerous maneuvers, my blood ran cold. Because I realized that this truck driver has no option but to continue. And how lucky and fortunate I am that I'm alive today.
Wow.
And nothing has happened. So,
we don't know who all we owe our life to.
Absolutely. Totally. In not just the preservation of our life, but enhancing our lives and,
That's such a beautiful message to wrap this conversation with, Gyan.
Thank
You
you.
so much. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure talking
Thank
to
you.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.